Shout out to our sponsors at IconBet. Open source, decentralized gaming, no deposits, play straight from your wallet. IconBet, made by the players, for the players. Ion Icon is proudly supported by Icon Nation and the Icon community. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ion Icon, or should I say the final episode of the year. And with me, Icongrapher, how are you today?
I'm pretty good. We're trying something a little different. We're totally unscripted, and we figured we'll just talk about Icon stuff as it comes to our brain for the next, I don't know, half hour, something like that. So hopefully it's more interesting and not terrible. It's been an experiment, but thought we'd switch it up a little bit this time. Also, we were a little bit internally disorganized with the notes and stuff like that, but figured sometimes when we're not recording, we end up with quasi interesting conversations sometimes. So often about other blockchain stuff that isn't Icon related. So maybe some of that'll spill out into this too. But we're gonna riff it, and we'll kind of do a little bit of a year in review stuff. Just kind of, I think what the most significant stuff will kind of pop up off the top of our brains. But that's what today's format will be. So again, hopefully it doesn't suck. I don't think it will. But just so you're all prepared for what's to come.
Yep, agree. I don't think it'll suck. A fun episode, just talking about the year that's been, and I'm excited that you said other blockchain stuff. Usually we don't dabble in that during live recordings. We talk off air about it, so we can have a few discussions around that. I'm guessing I can graph it will be the dot ecosystem, talking a little bit about that, given the latest announcement that just hit us.
Yeah.
Were you expecting that?
The snow?
Yeah.
Well, so I've spent the last 2 days writing a pretty lengthy breakdown of it all, which probably after we're done recording this, I'll do one last look over and then hit publish on. But it's kind of in retrospect, it's not surprising, because it kind of makes ice on its own has a lot to stand on, between the BTP optimization and the fact that it's EVM compatible, Solidity, all that other good stuff. But it does make a lot of sense in order to, like, if we're already in Substrate, which is the language that Polkadot is basically built on, which is what ice will be built on, and we're already integrating with like Moonriver, which is part of the Polkadot ecosystem, it makes sense to just kind of say, screw it, let's just apply as a parachain down the road and get the benefits of being both in the Polkadot ecosystem and in our own little BTP ecosystem. And if you're going to make that move, then you need to have, well, you don't need to, but it's highly, recommended that you would have a sister chain that runs on Kusama, which is like kind of I don't want to use the word testnet because it's way more than that, but that's kind of the easiest way to identify it. It makes sense to have a chain that runs on that too. So like probably what I'm saying right now, if you're not very familiar, or even if you're a little familiar with Polkadot, probably it's making a lot of sense. I think the article that you'll probably be able to read as soon as you're listening to this will make a lot more sense. But kind of with all that knowledge that I've been working on building for writing this piece, it makes a lot of sense what Icon did and why there's not just ice but also snow. So I think snow's kind of a bit. I think people like the snow token more than they like the snow blockchain at this point, just because it's another free token essentially.
Yeah.
But I think there's a bit more to that, and hopefully once folks read what I wrote, they'll have a bigger picture understanding of how all the parts move together.
I'm excited for this article as well. So do you spend a bit of time breaking down the DUT ecosystem and how, I guess, DUT and Kusama?
Parts of it. I mean, more about just kind of like why it's different and what makes it interesting. I've done some research on the past, both for some Icon stuff and also just recreationally. And it's pretty impressive, the approach they're taking, and it's like it's one of those things that they came up with the idea in 2016 essentially, or at least started building in 2016, and it still isn't like fully live right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it is and it It's kind of hard to explain. So it's one of those things that's kind of been, you've been hearing. It's almost like Cardano, but better. But you've just been hearing about it for so long. But I think if it you kind of look forward in the future and envision that thing once it's fully operational, once potentially all 100 parachain slots are open, and you can see why Gavin Wood, who's the founder of it, thought the way he did and why he designed it the way he did, because it basically addresses a lot of the problems that were very present in Ethereum, when it first launched, both in, especially in terms of interoperability wasn't really a thing. Still kind of is. I mean, it still isn't really. I mean, there were bridges and things like that, but it's not. I don't think it's quite what he envisioned.
Yeah.
And scaling is a problem too, obviously, just based on Ethereum fees and things like that. So the way Polkadot is designed to basically resolve those things. So it creates its own. I mean, it's its own contained ecosystem, but it obviously has bridges to the outside. But even just if you're hanging out within the ecosystem, it's almost like its own separate blockchain industry to a certain extent. Again, if assuming the game plays out like it's supposed to. So I think being a part of that, if we can find a way to be a part of that as via ICE, I think that's pretty bullish for definitely for ICE, but presumably for Icon as well.
Yeah, look, I'm looking forward to reading it. I know I haven't explored the DOT ecosystem. I mean, I went to create a tutorial. I remember I was doing some research. So, the standard stuff when I kick off in a new ecosystem is setting up your new wallet. And I set up the DOT extension. And, it just took forever until I realized, you can't actually do much from it. Then you need to connect it to a website to be able to use the actual... And I pretty much gave up after that. I said, in my head, I was like, it should not be this difficult. But I guess I misunderstood the part where, you're not really interacting with much on DOT.
Right. I mean,
itself.
there's Polkadot itself doesn't support smart. I mean, Polkadot essentially at the end of the day is just like the relay chain that allows all the other ones to... It secures and allows them all to talk to each other. So, I mean, I haven't played around with it. How long ago did you do that?
This was a while back, so probably 5 months ago.
Yeah. So, I think, I haven't played with it, but it's still a very, the first parachains still haven't even launched on it. Parachain being the blockchains that are part of the ecosystem.
Hasn't I thought Moonbeam just recently
so
launched?
they're onboarding. So they first were there's a centralized version, and then I think a week ago they started decentralizing
yes,
it. But it doesn't fully launch until mid-January.
So and I know Iconography, you don't like to give too much away before your article drops, and I don't want to take away anything from the article. But see, what everyone doesn't realize is usually we're having conversations like this beforehand, and I drill Iconographer for information that I don't understand to hope that he explains it in a way that makes sense to me. So with this, so then obviously Moonbeam. So then there's the Moon River chain, isn't it? And that's connected to Kusama. I can't say that properly, but yeah.
Right. It's like
it's not
testnet is not the right testnet is not the right word, but I'm going to use it because it's what people are most familiar with. Kusama is the testnet for Polkadot. Moon River is the Kusama version of Moonbeam. So the analogy I've been using, and I use in the article that I think applies, is Kusama is the minor leagues, and Polkadot is the major leagues, right? So the stuff that happens in the minor leagues is still important to the players who are there. The championship still quote unquote matters, but at the end of the day, the minor leagues exist in order to funnel the good talent into the major leagues. So Moon River is the minor league version of Moonbeam, and Moonbeam the major league team. If that's so, if you're if you plan to build something on Moonbeam, you build it on Moon River first. Part of it's it's beyond just a testnet is a testnet as we know it, the one that the testnets that are on Icon is basically for developers to say hey, does the code do what I expect it to do? Does the application function? Does it work? Whereas Kusama is more, it allows you to figure out, hey, this application, as I built it, I expect it to run this way, and I expect users to behave and interact with it in this way. and allowing that to actually happen, and being a lot more being willing to be experimental with it and try different things and say like, okay, well, this is how we set it up. All the users hated it, so we can tweak it or things like that. Like, so like example is, Balance launched, and within the first week there were like a bunch of fixes they had to make, because part of it was like a lot of the stuff they had, there's only so much stuff you can test on like a pure test net. A lot of stuff that you can't discover until you use it. So it was part of that, but also even the stuff. So there's like kind of the fixes they had to make, but even beyond that, there was ways that the platform functioned that they thought made sense when it launched, but then like decided to tweak as more and more users used it. So it's that sort of kind of playground that the Kusama environment offers. And so like, it's basically kind of like, I think right now Balance is a much more polished product. I mean, they're still making improvements, but in terms of kind of the core functionality of it, like you would take Balance in its current form, and also it's been around for 8 months now. So like a lot of the potential bugs have probably been fixed out. Like the vulnerabilities for hacks are probably minimal. So you're in a position now, you could say like, okay, if we were on Kusama, if Balance was running on Snow, which was on Kusama, we could like potentially now say, okay, it's ready to be deployed to ICE on the actual Polkadot chain, because it's been battle tested. Like we've optimized how it works with users. We've optimized a lot of different stuff. We're kind of done experimenting with different features, and like there wasn't a whole lot of experimentation done on Balanced. I think partly because of the fact that it was, it's on the main net as far as Icon's concerned. There is no like playground for it, right? So that's what's nice about Kusama, is it allows you can get a bit more creative with your experimentation, because while there still is like economic value in the Kusama token, it's number 62 on market cap. It's still kind of seen as experimental, and everyone kind of who is using Kusama kind of knows that. So not to say like you can be more reckless and there could be more hacks and things like that. It's just more it's like a middle ground between being a complete test net where there's no value, and the final polished deployment where down the line potential like institutions and things like that might down the line plug into Polkadot. So and if you're going to have that level of interaction, you want everything to be as like polished and tip top and buttoned up as possible.
So how does that transition? This is what I'm curious about, and you may not know it, but so let's take Supernode Racing, and Wonderland, for example. They were planning to go on ICE. Obviously, in my eyes, Snow will launch first because it needs to. It's a Canary network, connects to everything essentially. Before it launches, goes for a parachain slot. It will launch its sister network, which is Snow, say, for Kusama to connect to that. So Snow should go first. Now, would Wonderland and Supernode Racing, it's in their best interest to deploy on Snow as well?
I would think so, because again, it allows you to like work out some bugs, work out whether there's gameplay issues, things that users they might start playing and say, I hate this, I like whatever. And so by the time you unveil it to the whole Polkadot ecosystem and the whole like all the users on Polkadot, you don't run into the same things of like, oh, I hate this game because of this issue, or I don't like this DeFi DApp because there's all the people who this is a great example, but there's a lot of people who are frustrated with the rebalancing process on Balanced. Maybe theoretically, like in a different universe, like a different version of Balanced on Kusama, or running on Snow on Kusama says, okay, like the rebalancing thing obviously didn't work. We're gonna like try a different approach to minting a stable coin, right? So it gives them a chance to iterate there. So like if I were Supernode Racing, I would say, okay, because all you have to do, I mean, all you're doing, like say you refine it entirely, you can push it like all the code, all you're doing is taking the say you make 50 changes while on Kusama based on user feedback, interactions, you fix bugs, like you do some experimentation, things work, things don't. At the end of the day, you have a set of code that reflects all those changes you had. All you have to do is, I'm probably simplifying a little bit, but you're just clicking a button saying, okay, upload it to Polkadot, because upload it to ICE on Polkadot, because it's all, it's the same infrastructure, it's the same code language, it's just a mirror of it. It's just built as a, as a lesser, not to say lesser version, but as, it's the Canary network, right? So it's easy to push it up once it's final ready. And then when you have like all the Polkadot users who expect, you know, a certain level of, you know, theoretically that they have a certain level of standards. So that way, if you were to deploy it without going to Snow first, and you deploy it and like it sucks or it doesn't work the way you think it will, or users are not the way, and like they get a sour taste in their mouth and they're like, all right, you know, I'm out, like whatever. Like, I'd much rather launch a product on the main, you know, quote unquote main net, knowing that all the like I have some sort of certitude that the users are going to enjoy it because it's been like to a certain extent beta tested, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, and it's a smooth transition to go. I guess this is where my sticking point is. It's once you decide, yep, you want to go from Snow to Ice, because Ice is on in this reality. It's on it's a parachain on DOT. It's a simple. I'm guessing it's a simple transition. The users, the money, the value, all transitions with it. I'm guessing because again. To put perspective in this, Kusama is currently trading at $281. So while we may say test net, you know, and we're very cautiously saying it's not really
I don't know if the money, I don't know if the like a month, like I think it still start like say there's, I don't know, again, say you had a version of Balanced on someone else built a different version of, someone built an AMM on Snow, so on Kusama. It had, say they built up $100 million worth of activity, you know, liquidity on there because people had been using it and everything like that. I mean, I think when it gets deployed to Polkadot on Ice, it starts with 0, but you've had a bunch of people who have used it on Kusama who are theoretically ready. Like it's the same, you know, it launches and instantly all those people who had all their value locked in, they're going to want to take their same value that they have via the Ice token, and also, you know, provide liquidity or whatever else it is. So, and it still can function, like there's still value and they're still functioning on Kusama. Like it's not like all of a sudden that money gets vaporized. It still sits there too. And you could still, you know, they could still experiment it on Kusama. It's just like, you know, they could say, okay, we think version 1.0 is ready to deploy to Polkadot, again, on Ice on Polkadot. And then they can like meanwhile say, okay, we still have other stuff we're going to work on, or you know, new ideas come around. So they, again, you can tweak with them on Snow, and then okay, version 2.0 6 months later, we're going to push that up to Ice.
Yep. Okay. Cool. And does the article cover the crowd sale auction, getting a slot?
No, I mean, I started to go in. I have a version where I started going to that, but it got a little bit, I think that kind of, I don't know, because like, so I mean, we could talk about it. Like basically, in order to have a parachain on Polkadot, which is what Ice would intend to be, you have to, it's an auction system, and the way it works is you put a bunch of DOT, which is the Polkadot token, up, you bond it, so basically kind of set it as a deposit, and whichever, you know, as the auction happens, whichever, you know, 5 parachain candidates have the highest, or whichever ones wins the auction based on however much they have bonded, they're the ones who get the slot. Now, you know, Moonbeam won their auction with like $1 billion worth of DOT, right? Now, obviously it's hard for any, you know, all these blockchains are essentially startups at the end of the day, right? So, and granted, they have high market caps, but a market cap doesn't indicate like this project has that much money. It just means that's how much the token's essentially trading for. So what Polkadot implemented is essentially a bonding, crowdfunding mechanism where people can basically, you know, if you have DOT, you can basically pledge it to help a given parachain candidate win an auction, right? So, you know, there's a lot of different ways, you know, like, so like, I think it was Moonbeam who did this, where they said basically, hey, if you pledge your DOT to us, we'll give you X number of Moonbeam tokens in return, right? So, and also, you know, pledging it, you still own it, and it gets locked up. And so if you win a parachain slot, you get it. You can lease that slot for up to 2 years, and so the DOT just gets held there. So at the end of the day, you get your principal back after 2 years, and then theoretically they'd apply for another auction or whatever. So it's like there's some economic incentives that can be worked out now. So there's, you know, if I'm Icon or Ice or whoever, you know, I haven't fully thought it through. I'm sure there's ways to get creative. Like, you know, you could deposit there could be like a DeFi thing where you could deposit ICX and as collateral get DOT and then pledge that DOT, and in exchange for the DOT, like you get like a higher return, like the ICE staking rewards, you'll get more of those, or something like that. Like I'm sure they either have an idea what they're going to do, or they're working on different ways to incentivize people to do that. You can also do a marketing campaign too, because there are they're theoretically, ideally, some of the Icon community buys some DOT to help out. Not that there's an obligation to do that, but that could be a thing that happens. And also, you can also just like market among existing DOT existing DOT user base, and make a case saying, hey, we think having ICE and giving Polkadot access to the BTP ecosystem is good for the Polkadot ecosystem. Please pledge your DOT to our candidacy or whatever it is. So
cool.
Yeah. So okay. Again, there's a lot. I guess there's a lot of. That's how it works. There's a lot of different ways it could be figured out in terms of putting ICE in the best chance to win one of the parachain slots. And I imagine, like I said, that's paramount on the mind of the team.
Yeah. Cool. No, that's good. That's a great summary. Looking forward to the article. Okay. Well, so the year that's been, huh? Oh, it's actually funny. I can go for it. This is 1 year. We started the podcast very early Jan.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know if we're doing a 1 year extravaganza or something like that. Maybe this could be it. But yeah, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, well, we're up to. I was thinking, we should plan. We're getting close to our 100th episode. We should have smashed a few, bogus episodes to clock that number in this year. No, nothing but quality content. Yeah, look, I still remember at the start harassing you a fair bit, going, we got to do it. And I remember I'm like, man, I'm good to go. Let's do it. And you're like, hey, hang on. We got to plan this. And I am away at the moment, so we can't just kick this off. How naive I was at the start.
Yeah. Well, now, I emphasize saying we need to be, structured and have it planned out and everything. And now here we're doing a completely unstructured, completely unplanned, and completely unscripted episode. So I think part of that's how, we've both gotten better at this over the last year or so. I feel like the first ones we did were like highly scripted. I had a lot more bullet points and things like that. Whereas now I'm pretty good at just kind of, I could kind of, we'll look at like we'll look at a bullet as, okay, here's the news. And we can kind of, we're familiar enough with everything. We've done it enough where we can kind of riff on things without having to kill ourselves on the prep work. So that's really good. But I was trying to think, so like, there's, the classic year in review thing is to like go through the timeline and hit everything. I'm trying, like, if you think about 2021, like what is like I guess if you could think of the top three, but at least start with the top one, like kind of most, like if I say Icon 2021, like what's instantly the thing that comes to your brain?
DApps, we actually had DApps go live on chain that you can use in the Icon universe, I guess. That would be for me. And now I guess it's overshadowed. We talk about ice and snow and all that stuff has really come back into it. But I think early on it was very much dApps. We're excited. Balance launched and it was all the rage. Everyone was discovering what DeFi was, especially long-term holders in the Icon ecosystem. What about you?
Yeah, well, that's kind of the one. Like I was thinking more just like along the lines of like a moment, and like the launch of Balance was interesting just because it was like the first time a lot of people had used DeFi. And I think just the chaos that ensued as far as like, I remember Ricky posting a screenshot of showing the APY of like, it was like 17,000% or something like that. And, I think at the time, like the first podcast we did after that, we're basically saying it's going to go down. But it was just, everyone, there was, Balanced at one point. I think it reached a price of like $70 or something.
Yes.
So I know, someone, and that wasn't like it wasn't like a momentary thing. It was like 70 for a day, or like 70 or 50 to 70 for a day. And then it was like in the 40s for a while. And so, if the people who were, who were selling their balanced those first few days made a lot of money because a lot of people didn't realize that how this was supposed to play out. I think we tried to warn folks a little bit, and also too there just wasn't a whole lot of experience in that realm. And so I mean, yeah, I think the people who were buying obviously in a tough position, but I think the ones who held at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. It's still free money, and obviously it went down in price, but you still held the balance BALN token, which had some value. And then kind of with OMM, we had like the opposite happen where everyone kind of expected a dump, and then all of a sudden it like went up in price to like $10 or whatever. So that was kind of funny how that happened. So those are the two kind of I think in both instances, everyone was kind of setting aside their calendar to be part of that process, just because they wanted to be, the ones who knew how DeFi worked, they wanted, the second those things opened up, they wanted to deposit so they could maximize their rewards. I didn't do that for Balanced. I wanted to give it a little bit of time just because it was really the first thing, and I didn't want to throw a bunch of money at it right off the bat. So I waited, I think, like 12 hours, something like that. And then with OM, I was pretty early to the game, and so and both worked out pretty well. I think we have another one launching, Optimus. 10 days, something like that. So that'll be I think that'll be another one interesting one to watch. I think going into it, people should just expect. I wouldn't, not to give investment advice, but generally speaking, I think buying a DeFi token, especially in the first few days, if not weeks, can be pretty risky. And if you want it, it's better to just earn it.
Yeah, and look, the Fin token anyway has a very low supply compared to. Look, I agree with you. Balance, I remember that as well. I was very vocal warning people. I recall podcasts, I was putting out tweets. I was getting criticized a fair bit. One person's like, "You're mad, stop talking." I'm like, "Okay, fine." But yeah, it's kind of played out this way on all chains, especially when DeFi gets introduced. So, but look, yeah, OM was interesting actually. I actually went all in with OM as well. It was painful. I made all the rookie mistakes. I aped in at $9, especially to the liquidity pools, and but I regained composure, thought where I was, and strategized a little bit, and got out with break even. So
see, but if you were buying, I think that's why the price went up, because people were buying, because the rewards on the LPs were so high that it like kind of made sense to buy, because even if you felt the price was going to go down, there's still a lot of rewards to be reaped from being in the LP. So like I think I was for a little bit now, like knowing, I think even like knowing like I'm probably overpaying for this now, but in the between now and when it goes down in price, just being in the LP, the rewards were so great that it was a pretty good, like it got pretty lucrative there for at least the first few days.
Yeah, totally.
So it wasn't totally illogical what you did, I guess is the point.
No, it's just yeah, I aped in at the wrong times. Like, see, I recall it was at 4 and I went to ape in, but I decided not to. And then when it got to 9, I aped in. So had I aped in at 4, I would have really reaped the benefits. But yeah, look, and that's where you live, you learn. Like a lot of people get discouraged and stuff. I actually called it out when I made that mistake. I remember, because it was like everyone still does. I've still made it in. Post that, I've still made the same mistakes on other chains doing the same thing. So just shows a little bit about myself. I can't help when I see those yield percentages. But yeah, look, definitely for me, that's how I see in Icon. I think, a year of launching dApps, more utility. From a disappointment side, yeah, okay, we were meant to have the most connected chains to BTP, but I guess, oh crap, Icongraph, how could we forget like the build up to Icon 2.0? It's kind of a painful story to look back on, because we were hoping it would have happened a lot sooner. However, just the nature of it was a migration. It wasn't a hard fork or anything like that. So that itself took a lot longer than anyone anticipated. which was a shame because it's, delayed everything we hoped the place we would be in by this year, this time. We're still asking the question at the moment, when BTP, and we know it's around the corner, but we still don't have firm dates, which is a bit of a shame. However, again, stuff's happening. I've had a bit of time to reflect, and I have some thoughts around it. BTP, for example, I get it. I get the frustrations. I also see it from the teams working on it at the moment, because, getting information from different chains, just getting in contact with the right people, getting information to flow through within your own chain is quite hard because of the decentralized and, time zone, the way everyone works, let alone trying to connect and work with other chains. And then you start thinking about their infrastructure, their processes, and they're trying to build out this bridge, on both sides, and the complications around that. I can see the reluctance of why an exact date and timeline isn't being given there, because even in the final stages of testing, they could be finding things that are unexpected, and just the turnaround time to fix those, where in other places it could be, say, 2 weeks, may span a month back and forth due to the different ways of working, and the way that chain does their testing and goes through their phases before deploying on mainnet. Look at Binance Smart Chain, this hard fork. I don't believe it's happened yet, but it's been pending for a month now, and there's nothing, I guess, Icon, our team can do in relation to things like that. It's kind of, you have to wait for those chains to get to where they need to, or do the forks or whatever's required as part of integrating those contracts into their chain. So I've gone on a bit of a rant here, but I think for me, when I reflect on the year, I come back to, the Icon 2.0 took a while. It was unfortunate, but I think once you understand what they were trying to do, you get why it took a while. And the second part of the disappointment, let's leave price out of the equation for now, is, yes, we don't have a launch date for BTP, but I hope my little rant actually helps put a bit of context as to why that may be the case. Although Naeem, who unfortunately is leaving, who's been a great dev to push, stuff back and forth between the foundation and us, the community, has said that it is literally around the corner and it's not going to be that much more for wait. So fingers crossed.
Yeah. How do you, what's your, say BTP launches tomorrow, and they, okay, both, we have access to Near, we have access to Harmony, and we have access to BSC or Binance Smart Chain. What would your, just from a functionality standpoint, how would you personally potentially use it? Not necessarily on day one, but envisioning a scenario, once BTP is available, how would Fez utilize it?
So this is the thing, and I think I've said this to you once before. We can have these 6 chains or 7 chains or how many other chains, but there has to be some incentive for me to move my BNUSD. I'm going to stick with that narrative, or ICX, for example, across. And that incentive would be some kind of APR, right? If I can, for example, move my BNUSD across to Binance Smart Chain and put it with BNUSD in a stablecoin pool and earn 45% yield, well, I am going to take the time to learn how to do that. Does that make sense? If that didn't exist, I'm not going to bother. There's nothing in it for me. So just on that's how I see myself using it, and I feel that's what will need to be done. And I think TJ has kind of hinted at, thinking a bit bigger with CPS and stuff like that, going, well, we have a flagship product about to launch, but it doesn't mean that everyone's just going to go, yay, BTP, let's just go using it. No, there has to be a reason why. And first is you're attracted by yield. And then all of a sudden, once that's the easiest step, right? In my head, Icongrapher, that's what I see. But then what I also see is, for example, balanced and I feel very strongly about the rebalancing, but let's just say that that starts to get tightened up a lot more. All of a sudden, if I can then take some of my stashes and go, well, I can mint BNUSD, get paid to do that, and take that BNUSD and sit it in Ohm, or move it across and sit it in Anchor for a more stable 20% yield. And we did say we're going to talk about other chains, and Iconography, I'm a big fan of Anchor. Like I would do that. That is how I would envision using BTP to move my bags around so that I can get yield. Get more yield from it. That is my number one use case for. Well, that's what I currently do. That on all chains, but I have to move through exchanges and various trades. So by the time I make good on my moves, I have to wait a week to recoup all the fees, and then I'm making some yield.
Yeah, I mean that's what's like just from like a, I guess the 50 IQ version is like I'll randomly have because I'll like mess around on BNB on BSC sometimes because there's like whenever there's a I like to do a little bit of YOLO gambling on some like lower market cap coins sometimes, and of course they're all launching on Binance Smart Chain, and I'll like sometimes I'll take profit and stuff, and then I'll end up with like some extra BNB, and it's like, all right, well if I want to get it, like say I want to take that extra BNB and put it into ICX, or if I want to buy like say Gangster Bet or something like that, or Balanced, or when it's if I want to move it back onto Icon for whatever reason, it's like, okay, I got to take it from, I got to send it to Binance, I got to sell the BNB for like USD, I got to buy the USD to ICX, and then I got to move the ICX over. All that takes a little time. Each transaction has a fee. It's not like the biggest headache in the world, but it's still just not fun. If there's a way to just easily just say like click send the wrap BNB to ICX, or even like I can trade the BNB for a stable coin and then send to ICX or whatever. Like that's like the baseline, I think, easy use case. Obviously and then there's like what you said, but I'm just like where does the what happens, like where's the liquidity go, right? Does it go like okay, so take pancake swap for example.
Yeah.
Anyone can create a pool.
Yeah.
Is it going to be profitable? Like, okay, take out a loan in BNUSD, take 50% of it and buy USDC, and then like wrap them on Binance and then deposit into just a BNUSD / USDC, like create a USDC / BNUSD pool on Binance, right? And then all of a sudden, okay, so like, and it's like, why would you do that? It's like, okay, well, you get the trading fees, and it's kind of like, well, who's going to trade those two stables for each other on Binance? Eventually there'll be enough Icon people hanging out over there. Well, they want to get it, but also if you create an there's potentially an ARB opportunity now, right? So if they're wildly if they're trading wildly on Balanced, if they're out, if it's like right, if USDC is like $1.05 or whatever, like it has been in the past, okay, but it's trading 1-for-1 on, or it's the other direction on Binance Smart Chain or whatever, you can like move it over and capture the ARB there. Also the fact that it's so hard to like, you can't really do ARB now because it's such like, to get USDC, if you try to do it with USDC and like move it to Ethereum and then back to like send it to Ethereum via Orbit and then to the exchange and then like buy ICX and then buy BNUSD or whatever the like the chain is. Again, by the time you like go through all that, both in terms of the time it takes and in terms of the fees you're going to pay, like the ARB is lost. So that's why it doesn't pay. So whereas if it's easy to just move it over to like Binance Smart Chain or whatever, and then onto an exchange or something like that, it just makes it a lot easier. So I think that's just like one, and that's like literally just stablecoin trading against each other. Again, it's not like the most optimal thing to do, but that's just stablecoin too, because you could take all the pairs, theoretically, there's probably not liquidity enough for all of them, but like you could take a lot of the pairs that exist on Balance right now and just theoretically, I think, create the similar versions on Binance Smart Chain. I'm also interested to see which, again, we're just talking BSC here. Obviously, there's Near and Harmony. I'm just talking BSC because I've like used it the most. How many BSC tokens are going to end up on ICX I guess A, end up on ICX, and B, which ones are going to be, which ones are the most likely candidates to end up on balanced immediately. I would assume like a BNB slash SICX pool or something like that, or at least at the very least like a BNB BNUSD pool. I'm not sure, but you can kind of just see, like, you can start thinking about, okay, even just kind of these default like infrastructure style liquidity structures that kind of create the foundation for more activity down the line. I think it's like an immediate kind of like day one use case, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
For BTC.
Look, the easiest way to lure liquidity is what Balance offers, is being able to lock up your coin and mint and go and do something with it. Like that doesn't even need
just in terms of like using it as collateral.
Exactly. It doesn't need, like, that is your default number one. Like, you look across all the chains that kick off with DeFi. Like, this is how Ethereum started. The main use case for Ethereum was kind of apart from ICOs and stuff like that, I get, but its utility came into play when you could lock it, you could mint DAI, and what could you do with that DAI? Jack shit. Sorry, but you couldn't. All you could do was literally go and buy more Ethereum, and that was the best thing to do. And keep an eye on a liquidation price. But again, I come back to why I love that was, well, as like when I was taking a loan, my liquidation price was like $35. I was being ultra safe. And I never had to worry about it. So over here with Balance, and again, I come back to stuff will get built on top to mitigate some of the stuff we're seeing with the rebalancing and Balance. But let's not dive into that. But I think that is number one. So you see Harmony, literally the utility coins. What's the word I use? I forget now, but basically the native coin. So Near, Harmony is one. All of those just instantly become candidates for collateral on Balance, and vice versa. Like our token becomes in their DeFi apps collateral, and you don't even need to incentivize that. It can just literally be that you see their DeFi app, they're offering some kind of yield or whatever, and we'll dabble across via BTP. So, but then I can go for, Min's tweet. He hinted at this incentive program. This should be interesting. Keen to hear a bit about that, because I noticed
was that in that thread saying, like a 8-part thread saying there's stuff. I kind of glanced through that because I was like on vacation or doing holiday stuff. But what did he say on the? I don't remember the incentive one. What did he say? Do you remember?
He just like an announcement off an announcement, and it's not like Min to put out threads. So it was good to see him talk about the year that's been and some of the exciting stuff. But it's very much this is a year everything goes. We go crazy. Our flagship product's ready. There's an unannounced incentive program coming out. So. And whatever that may be, it's interesting though, that tweet, a lot of people retweeted, and some people did comparisons to Avalanche and I think even Neo or some other chain where they
had like the like Phantom did something similar.
Yes.
Like basically liquidity. There's like the liquidity incentive thing. I even mentioned that in, I think, that the piece I wrote on ICE like back in, I don't know, September. Of that. That was kind of interesting. It was like a model that like 3 or 4 of those layer ones popped up with like huge incentive programs.
Yes.
And I expected that to be like every chain's going to start doing that now, and then it just kind of stopped. Like I didn't see anyone else do that. So, but I think that's a good. I mean, maybe that like I haven't checked on that strategy, like how much of that incentive has been paid out for those liquidity incentives and things like that. So maybe it like wasn't as effective, but I think that's probably. I think anytime you can put money there, it's probably going to work out. So I'm interested to see if it's something along those lines or something, and hopefully something a bit more unique too.
Look, I think there's a few things, like when I reflect on it, because criticisms, marketing, there's always been, I've graphed through the year, like when we think about it, we've had our criticisms, but at the same time, like we've also been level-headed to go, okay, well, market what? We couldn't go full steam ahead because we kept saying we're stuck in a rock and a hard place where we can't go too crazy with Icon 2.0 come in, the migration. There was always all these things looming. And at the end of the day, the flagship product being BTP would ship with Icon 2.0, right? Post that. So what was it was kind of like, well, do they go hard blowing money promoting, and then there's complications? And one of the other complications that people may not, as a community member, may not realize is, we were switching languages essentially. So we went from Python to Java. Now you have to remember, this is kind of a big thing. Like it's kind of going, yeah, you've been working on a chain for so long like this, but that's no longer the case now. You need to change everything to this. And it's a different language. So, and all these toolings that had been terrible with Icon, unfortunately, but was getting built out slowly, especially when Naim came on board. He was getting things transparent. But all of a sudden we go, okay, we're moving to Java. Now, there's reasons for that. It had to be done. But what was good was Foundation didn't want to make the same mistakes. So part of that move, they wanted to make sure all the tooling, I'm being so blasé and vague about this, but I'm not a dev. But the pieces they need to get things started and moving from their standpoint, they've been trying to actively work to build that out and make it robust and make it easy for the devs to change this programming language, to move their dApps across to Java, and then from future, actually release the smart contracts in Java, which was a huge change. So. I think I've lost myself in the point I was going to make, Iconographer, but I think that is a big call out to make as well. Like, so we're kind of, yes, marketing. So we've kind of had all this happen, and I feel now the New Year's really, we say this every year, but make or break for Icon. And what I mean by that is, people say, oh, the team doesn't care. I just don't think that's true. And I say this from personal experience because I do talk to them and hound them quite a lot, as you know, Iconographer. And one of the reasons I personally hang around with Icon and do everything I do, because I feel the passion the team has. Like, I feel they care. I feel that they're trying. I feel they want this to be a success. And yeah, I agree with it. And now I can see that even from Min's last few bits where he's kind of highlighted the flag, he keeps saying this flagship product is ready now. Now's our time to go. So it'll be, I feel we're in for a very eventful 2022 from Icon's perspective. And I've already seen a shift in sentiment, the amount of comms coming out from the team, keeping people updated. I know it's not as transparent as people would like, but you can't change things in a day, but it is changing. So I reckon a bit more patience should pay off, but I reckon we're heading into a good year.
I'm curious how much, obviously, people, I think some people hopped in due to they wanted to capture the airdrop. And I'm curious how many of them are going to stick around. It was kind of funny that, for my Medium account where I have my articles, you can go to stats and it'll show you how many people per day are reading or looking at articles or whatever. And the day, right, I hadn't posted anything really. I hadn't re-promoted it. Occasionally I'll repost one of my articles or something like that. And I don't believe I did, but the day, I think it was the day right before the snapshot, I had a huge spike in the number of people who looked at it. So I'm wondering, just anecdotally, people saw, oh, airdrop, okay, I'll hop onto this thing, and then they were sitting on this token being like, well, what the hell did I just buy? And so maybe doing some research or something like that. Now, they might still have sold out the airdrop, but I think some of them, there's a non-zero chance that a handful of them have held on. I see it, anecdotally, it's hard for me to tell, people who are, because so many people retweet Icon stuff in my timeline so often, but I can't tell. I've seen anecdotally people kind of mention hey, there's kind of been more people popping into the ecosystem and sticking around and things like that. So I think that's good too. I think that's a sign of, generally the market's healthier and things like that. Just again, anecdotally, the engagement I get on stuff that I put on Twitter is, significantly higher than what it was, a year and a half ago when we were still in the bear market. So, I think that, little things like that are certainly encouraging. But yeah, I think it'll be, I think kind of circling back to the point you're making as far as I can see the ability to lock collateral on balanced in order to mint BUSD, that'd be a good advertising tool to lure other chains onto. Like if you're sitting on your Harmony or your Near, and I don't know what the yield opportunities are on those chains off the top of my head, but like just saying like, hey, come over here, lock this up, and mint some BUSD. Maybe we temporarily either raise the BAL and rewards, or maybe lower the origination fee, or combination of, like, just kind of create that incentive. Because I think once like they hop on, once someone like actually uses the chain, their chances of kind of like learning more about it and sticking around and playing around with it certainly increase. So if there's a way to just like from the get go, okay, if you like the native tokens for all the chains that are BTP, so like, yeah, you can lock, because there's obviously plenty of liquidity for all of them, and they're all they all trade pretty well too. It's not like they're random shit coins that could plunge by like 50% in a day because there's no liquidity. They're all top 100 coins, I think, off the top of my head. So you could make a reasonable case like, yeah, it's totally fine. We'll just create the collateral, basically the same way ICX works, and then be able to mint BUSD and start, they could start their icon journey that way. That would be. I mean, I don't know if that's the best like incentive structure to lure them in, but certainly wouldn't hurt. And also too, it's it's a good way to motivate iconists to maybe go buy some BNB or some Near or some Harmony, and lock it up on our end too. Again, if there's opportunity there above and beyond ICX, certainly there'd be a good incentive to do that.
I think this is where it comes down to. Sometimes when it's because there's so many chains and so many dApps and stuff, you just don't even know where to look for that opportunity. I think that's probably part of one of the challenges that we need to tackle is the icon growth. I think there's few opportunities. There'll be incentive-led program opportunities, and they will be crystal clear, right? Because if it's an incentive program, they'll go, yep, we're incentivizing BNUSD and this on PancakeSwap. So by default, say if there's an incentive to get 30% yield on it, a smart integration would be, yep, okay, so what that happens is, and we've enabled BNB, all of a sudden you got a flood of BNB users go, hey, I can lock up my BNB, get paid and balance at 13%, right? Post a 1% fee. And then take that BNUSD and put it into this and earn another 40% in a stablecoin lossless manner, for example. This will just instantly, that's not hard to do. That's like a 3-step process thanks to BTP. Bridge, lock, take, go back, add, done. People are going to be capitalizing on that, and indirectly, Icon's going to get utilization, which is cool. Staying away from rebalancing. I know I keep criticizing it, but I think it's a big deal because can you imagine like that concept is very new. People know liquidation. People know that if you get to a certain price, you get liquidated. That's fine. They're comfortable with it. They understand the risk. People aren't used to daily seeing their bags, their bags that they're holding for a long time, getting sold off. I could argue that with anyone. I'm sorry. I just believe that to be fact. Like,
well, I think we talked about this before. It's like, I think this is I don't say extreme example, but like, say someone who holds Ethereum, they probably a diehard Ethereum person. They've been sitting on their stack of Ethereum since 2014 or whatever. But they utilize it and like getting yield on it and things like that. And they hop over and like, oh, let's use balanced. I do think just like, and if all of a sudden they see, oh shoot, this just sold off some of my Ethereum that I've been holding since 2014 or whatever. Yeah. Like that could be a psychological, that's a psychological, it can leave a bad taste. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be everyone. And I think, the vast majority of people who use balanced have like just grown accustomed to rebalancing and expect it and know how it works. And otherwise they wouldn't, there's still a lot of loan there's still plenty of loan that's being taken out. So it's not like so unpopular where it drives people away. And so it's just a matter of like finding the balance between, how many people are we really turning off with rebalancing? I mean, right now, like I'm sometimes thinking about putting a loan back in and I'm like, I don't want to deal with rebalancing. And it's not like it's a big deal, It's just, I like to know, okay, I have X number of ICX.
Yes.
And it's only going up because of, it's SICX, so it only goes up. So it only, because it stakes. And then like to have to just, even if it's like a really small amount, just for my own like mental, and this, I can be weird too. This is my own mental thing. It's just like, I just like to know it's up only for me as far as my ICX stack is concerned, rather than up, down a little bit, up, down, down, up, that kind of thing.
And look,
but other people don't have that same, approach to it. And they'd rather, the upsides of taking out BNUSD far outweigh, or even a little outweigh the downsides of the perceived downsides of rebalancing.
Well, and this is just look, I did it the first time. Originally, remember, there wasn't any rebalancing happening. So, look, I have a very love-hate relationship with the protocol because I love the concept. I love everything it represents. I just hate this particular component because, like, it invalidates everything. Like, you're staking, you lock up your ICX, it gets staked, so you're not losing. But every day, and I didn't have much ICX in there. Like the second time, I only put up, I put up a lot of ICX, but I only borrowed 3,000 BNUSD. Okay, so my, it was like at nothing. However, every day I was getting rebalanced 30 to 40 ICX. I don't have the time to keep going in there and watching and then, when you start rebuying it, the cycle just speedens. If everyone keeps doing that, rebalancing every day, it's kind of defeating the, purchasing their stash. It's defeating the point of rebalancing, and we're going into this vicious circle. And yeah, it's I've paid down. I just don't use the loan feature.
I think we've probably talked about this before, but it's out of my brain. If the balance team like handed you the keys and just said, okay, fix rebalancing, but allow balance to retain its like what it's supposed to do, how would you put it? I guess the other alternative is like, how would you put a Band-Aid over the rebalancing problem?
See,
if you became god of balance for a day?
I don't. This is the thing. I don't have the answer to this because the mechanism. I get it. It's. This is how the protocol's been designed to keep its peg. So you would literally have to change the way the peg is kept. And this is where Scott understands it extremely in depth. And I question the need. Like often I think about it and go, well, see, the rebalancing component is anyone running, the ARB opportunities. I think if that mechanism can't be changed, they should close it and make it internal so the ARB opportunity is run to keep the peg and those profits are distributed back to, I don't know whether... Yeah, I don't know, rebalance, if it's, just something like that. And I know that defeats the point of decentralization.
Wasn't that like when the rebalancing like first became a big issue? This is like, I don't know, a couple weeks after. Balance launch, everything was good, and then the price of ICX tanked like 2 weeks later with the whole market. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like the rebalancing started really kicking in. And then everyone started talking about it. And I remember there were like a couple solutions being kicked around by Scott. And I can't remember, like I haven't paid as much close attention to balanced, I think, as you have. But like there were it's like, yeah, something about redistributing all like the ARB profits to those who got rebalanced and stuff like that. Like whatever, did that idea like kind of fizzle out, or they
No. So he made changes to it. It wasn't the way I understood it. Again, though, this is where my knowledge isn't great either. But he did implement those changes where the reverse balancing. The problem is, like, again, I get what Scott was saying is it will sell and it will buy at the same time. So over a period of time, you will see your stash just stay the same and, in fact, grow because essentially it's DCAing out in the right way. But I think with the peg and the struggle, it was just always just selling. There was barely any buyback. Like Brian would always call out when a buyback happened. And I think it's been 3 times now, or maybe more. But compared to the daily selling off, like 1 or 2 buybacks weren't, it wasn't going the right way. So Yeah, they made some changes. I can't even remember. I know it was a big deal. It was meant to fix, but It didn't really fix. Rebalancing was still happening, quite a lot of it. So, look, I think I wonder if it was managed in house and then distributed. What would happen there? Would it offset a little bit of the rebalancing? I don't know. Someone who's an expert could be listening to this podcast and thinking, geez, I'm going to stop listening to this podcast now based on Fez's comments because he's an idiot. And it could be true. So I don't have an answer to it. I just know it's I don't see it being a wide stream accepted feature. And something Brian has said to me is, don't judge it. It's in its primitive form now. As it evolves and stuff gets built on top, that people won't even realize this is happening, which I get. But I guess Icongrapher comes back to this scenario here we talked about. BNB, right? Yeah, BNB comes across. You can put it as collateral. Yes, they've taken the steps to explain rebalancing. Now they've added some text, but I've again been vocal, going, I don't know if just clarity is the issue here. I do believe they'll see it. Oh yeah, all of a sudden it'll happen. It'll scare the new users off, and then we end up in the same boat. I really don't want to see that happen, and fingers crossed it doesn't happen.
Well, at the very least, I guess the other side is like there can also be markets on Ohm for borrowing and lending those
Yes.
assets too, and that could be. I mean, that's a much more straightforward way to lure people in. Also, because I think there's like going to be, I think that's a good way to earn just passive yield. You don't have to worry about rebalancing. You don't have to worry about, if you're supplying, you don't have to worry about origination fee. If you're borrowing, you do. But even that's not a huge deal. So that can be, people obviously have options if they're coming over from one of those other chains.
Yep, I agree. And that is a good one, Icongrapher. Like, moving away from balance potential is completely unrealized, and it offers huge incentives without actually dangling more money at the average user to bring liquidity across, because even in its current form, people can do it and then utilize their BNUSD in different ways. So, and Ohm does the same thing. The bigger the money market gets, the more. These are your base ways we're going to move liquidity around, right? And then, obviously, say CPS or even whatever this incentive program is being hinted at, that could be a big driver in moving money cross chains, because indirectly then what we want is just utilization, right? Heck, I can go for, we're focused on balance and Ohm. The ultimate use case, or the thing that gains a lot of traction, may be between Harmony and Near for their game, DeFi Kingdoms, and something happens over there and they're utilizing the bridge, and it's being utilized in an insane way, so driving a lot of traffic back and forth. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're zoning in on our dApps, but that's the beauty of BTP, that all the other chains connected may find utilization between their dApps without any incentives, and it just drives a lot more adoption.
Totally.
Okay, I think that's good. I think I've bashed balance in a loving way enough. I don't mean to. What is great as well, I think this is interesting, and I'll call it out, Icongrapher. So you and me, we've created this picture around BTP. You explained, I remember that episode was very much watched and called out, where you explained the BTP and the fees, and how that when it's gathered and ICX is used, and that ICX goes to CPS and obviously posts the 1 million, it burns. And that kind of clicked for me in that episode, and obviously a lot of people who listened to it, it also clicked for them, and everyone got a bit excited, going, yes, we can't wait for these changes, because this is what it does. It creates this burn. Now, since then, obviously TJ has come out, and this is funny, isn't it? How protective people get, because I felt the same way when I saw it. I was up in arms until I actually took the time to read it. He pitched this idea about, rather than burning, it can be used in different ways. Now, if you look at that post,
it actually starts in huge text saying, "This is just an idea."
Right.
How many people have just ignored that? No, don't do this. This is terrible. It's like, no. Nothing's being done. TJ is literally who works, in CPS, has been crafting it, helping it evolve with community feedback. Has tried to put out an idea to get people to think from a different perspective. And I went, but then I thought, no, I need to read it through. And then I actually had a few conversations with him, and I understood the point he's trying to make. And this is where it comes down to, we're not a thriving ecosystem. And I see TJ's point. There's no bang for your buck to burn at the moment, especially when it's 10% off the inflation. So off the 4% inflation, 10% of it goes to CPS. Then say if CPS was full, then you could say that 10% is being burned. But what is it, Iconographer? It's 3 million a month, and 300,000 off that goes to CPS. So to put it in perspective, if CPS was full, we would say in a month, 300,000 would get burnt. Plus, say BTP fees add another 300,000. We're still, inflation is still 2.4 million ICX. So are we really deflationary? And I think people went back and forth, but the other day TJ posted, and this time, I don't know if you've seen that tweet, Iconographer, he gave a bit of a breakdown in a different way, where he said, okay, let's look at this now. We've got all these proposals with Karma DAO and the new ones that have come into CPS. And he under the new free structure with Icon 2.0, some of the updates that have come out, we can see at the moment we're burning 2,000 ICX a day. Okay, I was actually working this figure out. For us to become deflationary just on fees, it would be, I was doing the math before, 96,000 ICX, 98,000 ICX would need to get burned a day. So let's say 99,000 ICX would need to get burnt a day. But coming back to his point, so what his point was, right now we had that 1 million cap, and then 300,000 is getting burned plus BTP fees. Or we keep funding apps, and the more dApps that keep getting created, or the more utility BTP can provide, and I'll start saying this a lot, and by that, if we can provide incentives for BTP adoption by CPS as well, we should. He compared it to adding value per transaction. So if every dApp could add, and I can't remember the exact figures, but hypothetically he was saying, okay, if every dApp adds 300 ICX to the daily burn, and then he actually cross-references and says, well, if it costs $50,000 to build this dApp that adds another 300 ICX to the daily burn, that's how he does his analysis, you see, because then he's like, well, that inflation has already paid off in a year. So that inflation that's gone to CPS to fund this, all of a sudden the dApp is burning this much ICX. So it will break even that inflation that it's used in a year. And then post that, if it keeps growing. And you can see what he's trying to lead to. His point is that the more we can redirect inflation at the moment, rather than burning it into utility, the quicker the burn will happen overall, versus just 300,000 getting burnt a month, which is still, there's not much utility as in transactions being generated on the network. We're just seeing this stupid burn happen. And overall we're still in inflation mode. So if you haven't, really encourage you to check out this breakdown. He uses 3 to 4 different examples to give you an understanding of what he's trying to establish or bring across with his idea. I've talked a lot, Iconographer. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's funny, like, kind of the argument, I think we talked about this last time we recorded, but basically, like, there's the argument saying, okay, if you're burning stuff, it means you literally ran out of ideas how to productively use an asset or capital that you have. And like, I mean, on the one hand, $1 million like CPS fund kind of sounds like a lot. and it is to a certain extent. But then again, kind of circling back on these incentive programs that we talked about, like with AVAX or Avalanche and Phantom. Like I'm looking at the announcement that Phantom gave right here, and their incentive program it's 370 million Phantom. And that's like, in Phantom right now trade, I don't have it in front of me, but it's like somewhere in the $2 range. So that number is like, getting closer to like right now it's like, okay, $500 million essentially.
Yeah.
And granted, that's like it's different than CPS because it's geared toward, luring DeFi teams to it's incentivized based on how much total value locked teams can bring to Phantom, right? So, but the thing, like, okay, so they announced this, and then literally like that same day, the price of Phantom went up 100%, right? So the market clearly like loved the idea, and they saw like, and granted, the price action of Phantom is different than the price action of Icon for a number of reasons, but it just goes to show that like the market, there are instances where the market like admires and respects willingness to use capital to grow your ecosystem, especially when it comes to like liquidity and stuff like that. So like, again, they're different models, but it just goes to show that there's not like a clear playbook here where it says like, oh, like if you have excess, you just got to burn it, right? There's like at the end of the day, what matters is people need to and want to buy the token for whatever reason, right? Yeah. And with the burning, you're solving a supply problem. But I think what really, at the end of the day, drives price is the demand. Like a little bit of increase, even like a little bit of increase in like organic demand has a much more significant impact on price than if you lopped off a chunk of supply being burning.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like it doesn't, the people, like the number of people who are like truly using kind of like Phantom and things like that, it's not that crazy, but it's enough to where the demand just enough of it. There's enough of it there to where it really causes the price to go up. I mean, I think same with like Solana, same with Avalanche. I think a lot of that is speculation, but at the end of the day, it's just that there's demand to be on those protocols and use those protocols, and so that's why they're doing well from a price standpoint.
Yeah, and I think this is where Icongraph is separating. Okay, I really do believe that there is a separate incentive program planned, and that's what I think Min has been hinting at. Outside of CPS, forgetting CPS, like, because I get it. Oh, CPS isn't big enough to do those kind of things. So there's something big planned that will. That's what it sounds like. Let's fingers crossed it is as big as these programs were here. Because even the other day I was googling, I saw Binance did a 100 million incentive program. I was like, oh, cool. And your Phantom example is just right. And I kept going to button, and you called it out because the price of it then went up 100% to make what was originally probably a 250 million incentive program. Now, because it's in their native asset, it's but the fact that they were willing to take it out of their coffers and go, yes, here's money, come do. CPS is our dream of that, but CPS is inflation funded / P2P fees, and there's a limit to it, so it doesn't seem as big, but it's progressive. It keeps building. There's always, especially now, every day it'll get topped up, and we should see more and more happening there. So that's one, the big incentive program. Then as well, like at the moment, we keep thinking CPS is for building. We could use it for marketing, things like that. But all of a sudden now you've got a new prospect as well. What can I incentivize on another chain that will add value to us? And in our entire podcast today, we've talked of various examples, but you can start to think, I think, is it Venus on Binance Smart Chain? I haven't even dabbled that much apart from a couple of things. But they have protocols like Balance Style, where, we could start thinking CPS work on some kind of partnership and incentivize for a period of time, take out a loan here, blah, 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 CPS funded, etc., using 100 and 200,000 from CPS. And when you start thinking like that, it's like, well, then we want to be able to have that extra funding in CPS to do it. But look, again, one of the things like TJ was calling out is those funds just sit there. They don't have to be used. And after a certain period of time, everyone can go, you know what, let's burn it, or whatever the sentiment is at the time. We just don't want to find ourselves in a position 3 months into BTP, some opportunity comes out. It can't get covered by the current running incentive programs, but it's awesome. And you kind of go, well, this is perfect for CPS, but it's like, darn it, we just don't have enough funds in there. And then you look back on the months and you realize we've burned 3 million CPS ICX that could have funded that and bought in, this much transactions to the ecosystem. What a shit feeling that would be across the sentiment across the ecosystem, right? Yeah. So I'm with the iconographer. I think the burn is important. I think TJ's point is really realized now because the latest upgrade to the fee structure has changed. So if you didn't realize it, at this rate, I think we're doing probably 50,000 transactions less, but we're only burning 300 ICX. Now we're burning close to 2,000. So the fee structure has changed in a way that burns a lot more ICX, and so now you can start to see the picture he's trying to paint makes a lot more sense, because we only have to get to 98,000, as I said. but it's not hard. I can go for. I don't think with the right marketing. Sorry, yeah, go.
Let me ask you. You're obviously involved in, or hang out in the Luna ecosystem. How much of that price action, which has been pretty significant the last year or so, how much of that is driven by, I know they talked about the burning of the Luna as far as from the UST standpoint, like how much of the price action is driven by burning, and how much of it do you think is driven by people wanting to be in the ecosystem and needing Luna to buy Luna to do
that? I think Luna it's an odd one to compare it to, because Luna's primary use case is UST adoption. Yeah, it's stablecoin. So,
isn't it like the highest used? Isn't the market cap of UST like the highest of any stablecoin now? I thought.
Basically that's it. Yeah, it's But see, that's it. So. And I understand, like I sometimes see a TJ as well when someone references Luna, it's like he's like, but Icon isn't Luna, and it's a point. It's like even Ethereum, it's like it's Luna.
I guess my point is there's all the emphasis on burning, and like supply, like concerns about inflation, concerns about burning, concerns about whatever else. I'm trying to give an example of a blockchain where you can look at it and say, yeah, this went up in value because they burned a shit ton of it. And so we're finding a project that did well in price and pointing it to and say, yeah, it's because of it's because of the supply side and not the demand side. I just feel like every project out there, ultimately at the end of the day, it goes up because of the demand side. No, and the supply side isn't like even Curve, which has a crazy inflation amount, is still like crushing it because they've found other ways to create value for that token. And it's been gradually having an upturn even in this like kind of quasi down / stagnant market. And because again, I think they figured out the demand side.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Luna's supply is something ludicrous as well. But they have demand for it because UST is in demand, right? And this is what's driving it. And like when you reflect on Luna, it didn't have that many dApps. Yes, there's a ton in the pipeline. This is the difference though as well, and we're just starting to see that now. We're starting to see like Robbie, Protocol 7, they're coming out with the stuff that Iconographer, behind the scenes, I would tell you I'd get quite frustrated with the CPS proposals because this is the stuff I wanted to see coming through CPS. Now it's happening. And I'm actually vocal on Twitter questioning what they are asking for, this or that. But that's not because I want to see it, but I just like to ask questions.
It's more the details. You're just trying to hammer out the details.
Exactly.
Rather than yeah.
Exactly. I think it's very important, like for CPS, for me, like what I loved about the whole system is I feel everyone can be involved in it. And I want everyone to be involved in it. I think that will move voter stagnancy, all that stuff, because I think people don't even realize how much sway they have across what can happen on your chain. Now, some people don't give a shit. They're moon boys. But other people actually care and want to be involved. And you don't need to be a P-rep or working for a P-rep, but you can have your say through this. But P-reps and teams building need to kind of give a chance for the community to be vocal. So when I see people not posting in the forums, and I know it's disconnected, TJ's working on fixing that, but before it gets submitted, get it out there. Let the community get involved in it. Like we're a passionate community in the first place. Look at Gangster Bet. They from day dot, from every step, the community was completely involved. Even Wonderland, for example, it went up before and everyone could ask questions. So I'm very big on that. But overall, Luna, and one thing that frustrates me, I'm a huge Luna fan. I use its protocols, but when people say burn, 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 and I was having this argument with someone on Twitter, not argument, I was just trying to, my counterpoint was, and I kind of was talking to a few devs in Icon, like we should default as well with our NFT launches and stuff to be in USD, and I put out this tweet on Iron Icon, this thread, to make people understand that, you're talking, I can't remember, but I think it's 4 times, you're locking 4 times the amount of ICX to mint $1, like let's say from memory. You're doing the same thing. It's not burning the ICX, but the ICX is out of rotation. I would argue is Luna's being burnt, yes, but at the same time, the process is reversed. At any point, that USD can be burnt and new Luna be minted, depending on market conditions. And, that's how the peg is kept, essentially, right? So it's a matter of perception, isn't it? Like, yeah, it's burnt, but it's not burnt. It's not gone forever because it can be minted again. Then that's not the right terminology. But people are hooked on this, and that's fair enough because that's what's happening, and they've created an excellent narrative around it. And it's not me dissing it. I love the system. I think it's brilliant. But coming back to Icon, we have the same system. In fact, if we can stabilize the peg, but we can do that internally by getting more traction for our stablecoin. Like, I don't care about USDS and USDC. USDS has its own use case, moving money in and out from fiat to crypto. Great. BNUSD is our decentralized. BNUSD, thanks to everything we've spoken about today, you can see how more assets can move into our ecosystem thanks to BNUSD. And yeah, look, that it locks up a ton of ICX, and the more it gets adopted. So Pixels, if we saw Wonderland, all these new, like say GangsterBet did in BNUSD, we would then see a ton of ICX move into balanced, because if in the case of where BNUSD is needed, what would happen, Icongrapher? Its price would go up, and to stabilize it, more would need to be minted, which requires more ICX to be put into balance, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And basically, if BNUSD goes up, the rebalancing should happen where it adds to your stack rather than selling your stash. Right. So it's a very positive effect in the entire ecosystem. And that was probably one of my little peeves as well. I have many peeves, but well, if we don't adopt in our own ecosystem, go on, Icongrapher.
Like the demand for UST is mostly driven by the fact that it's basically a built-in 20% APR, right, on a stablecoin.
Yeah.
From the protocol, essentially, right?
Yes, that was the first.
From Anchor.
That was the first, but that has led to so it's led to, you can use UST to do so many things that you don't have to drive through an exchange. You can buy, pay for services. You can, do all kinds of stuff. And the other day I booked a hotel accommodation via UST in Australia through Traveller. Yeah. And these are the conversations sometimes I get a bit heated about, that in Icon we debate, should we spend? It's like, but Yes, these are no-brainers. Like, you need to create unique, different utility ways that bypasses exchanges, etc. And
Well,
yeah,
I guess the point I'm making, like the with the auction system for BTP, the assets that get collected. I think the key, obviously, I think people, like, at the end of the day, as the process moves on, at the end of the day, the CPS gets topped up and then it gets burned, right? So
Yeah.
that's, like, I think everyone's focused on the burn thing, and I probably, like, it sounds like if I was probably fudding the burn idea just now, and I guess I kind of was, but putting that aside, I think the key thing is, again, the way it's built up is, there's going to be all these assets that sit in that pool from the auctions that are collected. And the only way to get those assets at a discount is with ICX. So that in the same way that UST has that, like, kind of baked in 20% yield on it based on the way Terra is set up. Like, if there's a 10% baked in yield on ICX, now it might not be as clean as that, because if everyone's trying to get, buy the auction assets, it might be lower than that. But nonetheless, if there's that, like, kind of additional yield you can get in just by buying the ICX and then, using it to buy the discounted assets, like, you can even, like, see a strategy in Optimus where you deposit, like, you can take a stack of ICX, deposit into Optimus, and all it does is simply use that ICX to buy the discounted assets, sells the discounted assets on presumably balanced. It's all, it's all smart contract based. It takes your ICX. So it's, say there's 100 ETH in there. It takes your stack of ICX, or buys 1 ETH at a 0.9%, or at a 10% discount, sells it immediately for ICX. So you clip that 10% and it dumps that ICX back in your little pool, and it just does that over and over and over again. Now, I don't know how that if everyone's competing there, obviously it's not 10%, but that's just a very easy set it and forget it, like, built-in yield that in itself can drive demand for ICX. I mean, that's why, and again, like, yeah, I guess the burn's like a cherry on top of that, but I think that's the more critical part, is that there'll be an inherent reason to own ICX, because it gives, one of the use cases is it allows you to buy other assets at a discount. But even say, like, you're a huge, you're just an Ethereum, like, maximalist or almost maximalist, you can use that to, like, it gives me a chance to buy Ethereum cheaper, just by owning ICX. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, agree. And this is what I mean, like, the opportunities. I think it's going to be a big 2022. I can feel it. I actually really do believe it. So I think also the PREP changes and things like that are happening will have a positive impact, because you can actually see Brian has created the thing. You can see now that rewards have shifted drastically. So we will see more PREPs coming for funding of CPS. And by the way, can I just say, the new round of CPS, I don't call out, but Icon Sweden, I'm sorry, but I've seen repeatedly you deny proposals saying, shouldn't PREP rewards main PREP? No, we're not there anymore. Please evolve with the times. We are PREPs rewards aren't designed to fund their dev or their new projects. They should be coming to CPS for funding, because the rewards have changed dramatically, and that's not the way we work. So please don't go denying proposals based on that. Get educated with the newer times. Sorry, but I saw that and I'm just like, I got it pre-Icon 2.0 era, where people were doing, because the PREP rewards were still heavily loaded, and it would question, if they weren't passing it back to the voters and stuff, well, why do they need a ton of funding for it? But no longer the case. So I think all this will have an added effect in 2022.
Well, I think we said we talk for 30 or 40 minutes, and we're at 1 hour and 28. But I'm getting other things that I have to get done. So this was a fun one, though.
It was.
Hopefully people enjoy it.
Yeah. I think the only thing I want to say, so new year, I think, guys, everyone listening, what we'll do is I'm planning on separating. So we know we're on Spotify and all the major channels under Iron Icon, but at the moment, Iron Icon comes through via my educational crypto setups channel. I'm actually going to separate this out in the new year. So we'll have our own Iron Icon YouTube channel as well. So we'll be doing a big push to get everyone who listens to the show to subscribe there and make sure that's your go-to channel for Iron Icon, along with a few other changes in the show, which we'll announce in the new year as well. So, but I think it's been a huge year. Thank you, everyone, for all the support. I don't know, Icongrapher, did you expect Did you expect the show, one, to get as much support as we have gotten and to last this long?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I figured once we kind of figured out what it was, I think it was pretty clear that there was a market for it.
Yeah.
And neither of us got tired of it, so that always helps.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, look, and it's thanks to everyone just constantly giving feedback, listening to the show, and asking for more. So thank you for the year, and we look forward to another year, hopefully with more live streams, more getting the foundation on. Like, oh, we didn't even talk about that. Come on, Icongrapher, that was a huge event. The Icon 2.0 live stream, but we know that was quite a success. So hopefully we can do a few more things like that in next year as well.
Definitely.
But yeah, let's wrap it up. Thanks, Icongrapher. It's been a pleasure, man. Looking forward to another year. And however long with BTP expansion, what we can do there. Looking forward to the new year.
All right. Everyone have a happy new year.
Yes, happy new year, everyone. Take care. Thanks for listening. Bye.